Welcome to the Open Era Podcast. My name is Devang and I'm joined as always by Mr. Simon Bush. Oh, Bush, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Devang. I'm sitting in beautiful Whistler, British Columbia, getting up into the mountains, which is really nice for the spring.
Wonderful, wonderful weather in Toronto as well. As having a chat today with some friends about how much we talk about weather and if it's a Canadian thing or that's just what people do when they don't have much to talk about. But I notice we do it sometimes on this show too, so that could be an indictment on ourselves, Bush. But it is good outside. It is nice.
Once in a while, it does happen. Which brings us to the wonderful weather in Rome. It's been all right, actually, this week, hasn't it? It's not been too bad over there.
For a change, and I do remember, or I seem to recall it always being a rainy ordeal when we hit Rome for at least a couple of days. But yeah, you're right. I think for the most part it was. And unfortunately, the good weather couldn't save Rome from being hit by this tournament is way too long curse that we've seen since Madrid. But I think we're going to focus on the WTA for obvious reasons. We did get another meeting between the two best in the women's game right now, Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, Bush. Curious before the match, which way did you lean? Because I saw people a bit all over the place, which was maybe a bit surprising considering maybe the run Iga has been on this season. But I'm curious where you lean beforehand.
I think probably still favoring the pole just slightly, just off the back of her victory last week over the same player. And also these court conditions being a little slower as well. I think much more closely resembling what you're going to get at Roland Garros in 2 weeks' time. So I think it probably did favor Swiatek in this matchup, and obviously it proved to be the case. I also think there's just an element of fatigue as well between these two, of whether or not you felt Sabalenka had enough in the tank to overcome a very disappointing defeat, and whether or not she was able to rally to try and win the same matchup. I mean, great week for both of them in a lot of ways. They both played really well to get to the final stages. I think the thing that will be surprising to many will be the manner of this victory. It was actually very smooth sailing for Swiatek in the end.
Almost half the time it took for Iga to dispatch Sabalenka in Madrid. 1 hour and a half. Great chat in our Discord between Luke and Josh about this, and especially in the first set. But Iga was playing ridiculously well. And I think the unforced error stat, we have some problems with it because I don't think it really does properly capture the context that we see in tennis beyond the rudimentary points. Sabalenka had to go for a ton in that first set, Bush, and she was missing. And I think it was because Iga was not, and Iga was firmly in control from beginning to end. You mentioned the surface resembling Roland Garros. How scary must this be for the rest of the field to see this?
I think it definitely must be, just given how one of her chief rivals as well on this surface will be Coco Gauff, and just how easily she was dispatched in the semifinals. That is not a rivalry I think that Gauff looks forward to in terms of a matchup. I know this is overplayed and we've talked about it a lot, but that is just an awful matchup for her, especially on clay. It does not seem to be going the Americans' way at all. I mentioned smooth sailing with both players. I actually meant smooth sailing just for Swiatek. It was a much harder road for Sabalenka to get to the latter stages of this. The Svitolina match in particular just must have consumed a lot of energy. Yeah. Perhaps not too surprising the final went this way, the way that it did in the end.
No, and it lends to the strategy we saw from Sabalenka as well. But Iga stands alone. A few headlines with that remark, and I don't see how I can disagree with that, Bush. And it's not just the live ranking lead, which he has now. It's almost 4,000 points. I think it's 3,500 right now. And I know live ranking isn't everything, and sometimes it does not capture things accurately, but I do think they do right now, especially as we get into the business end of the clay season. Yeah, I thought in terms of the match itself, there was a chance in the second set in which I could see it going 3. And I saw that maybe that reservoir that Aryna digged into in Madrid, she had it once again with her. And early in that second set, she had a ton of chances. I think she had more winners in the first 2 games than she had in the first set entirely. She had a bunch of break points. I think she had 5 chances to start 2-0, and she could not do it. And I think that was clearly the match because, who knows what happens. I'm not going to say Sabalenka holds cleanly the rest of the way there, but psychologically, God, she needed that badly. But Iga shut the door.
Yeah, I think so. I also think there's some part of this which is how are you able to hit through the ball in Rome, like with those heavy conditions? And I think it seemed to affect Sabalenka more than Swiatek in this final. Like just the pace that was coming off the Pole's racket seemed a bit more lively, perhaps. It's just really hard to hit through this clay court. So if you're able to hang in rallies for a longer period of time, you're able to do just enough to open up those windows for attacking tennis. I think that was probably just the difference in this final, just overall weight of shot and being able to hit through the court slightly more.
Big time. Yeah, I think she held off Sabalenka in that first service game, and in the second service game, Sabalenka had a few more looks on the day, 7 for 7 on break points saved for Swiatek, and then it was a matter of time, really, as you could see Sabalenka getting a little more ragged and Swiatek closing in for her third Rome title, joining an illustrious crew. I believe she is the second woman to win 3 or more Rome titles before the age of 23 in the Open era. The only person to do that, Gabriella Sabatini, who won 4 Rome titles before her 22nd birthday. Someone who was quite good on clay. So good company to keep. Another stellar week for Iga. Bush, nothing has changed, right? She is the favorite. I guess it's just by how much in Paris.
Yeah, I think that I came into this clay court season predicting that she wouldn't lose on this swing. She has lost 1 match. I'd be very surprised if she loses another. It would be, I think, whoever takes her out in Roland Garros will have earned it. You do get the feeling at this stage that she's not going to beat herself. Like, she knows that court so well. She knows how to win when she's not playing her best. I think it's going to be a really tough out for anyone. That being said, there are players that can beat her. So I think that's what makes the women's side so exciting, is that yes, you do have a player who is, I think, head and shoulders above the field in terms of when she's bringing her A game and all that kind of stuff to make sure that she can get across the line. But when she's not playing her best, I still think there are players who can challenge and compete with her. And one of those players might be Danielle Collins, Dev. Talk about someone who is enjoying the last year on tour. I think it's a really great story.
No, definitely. I would include Danielle Collins in that chase group, the peloton, if you will, of people who could cause problems. Obviously, Elena Ostapenko in that crew as well. Although Sabalenka did quick work of her in the quarterfinals. Yeah, I mean, Madison Keys has been strong, but it's funny. I thought the quarterfinals in Rome I can very much see that being the quarterfinals in a couple of weeks in Paris. I truly could see those 8 players reprising their roles there, and that also has to do with some injury issues for some of the other top players, I think namely Rybakina, Bush. But another marker set down by Iga Swiatek. Anything else on the WTA side, Bush?
Yeah, just the sort of return of Naomi Osaka as well, getting to a quarterfinal or to a 4th round here. I think that is good progress. She's obviously never been a outstanding clay court player, but I actually thought she looked all right this week. She's starting to hit the ball a bit more cleanly. I think she looked a bit more comfortable out there as well. So there are positive signs in the Osaka camp. I think also just against the backdrop of also another Sofia Kenin sighting, making a relatively deep run to the 3rd round here as well. So I think 2 players that we have seen a lot of and are still expecting to come back to form in some capacity for differing reasons. But Rome is always throws up some interesting names, it has to be said.
On that note, I think you might have seen also the doubles championship at the Olympics, maybe in Rome here. Sara Errani and Jasmine Paolini beating Coco Gauff and Erin Routliffe. Sara Errani is back, baby, and she might win an Olympic gold medal, so that would be wicked. Let's move on to the shit show that was the men. Bush, injuries, water bottles, mayhem. We're not going to start with the winner, because why would we? But where do you want to start with this?
Man, there's a lot of places that you could start. Let's start by reading out the quarterfinalists for a Rome 1000 event on clay in 2024 and trying to unpack how this has happened. So we, of course, have to be low. We have Zhang Jingzhen. We have a German player. We have Taylor Fritz, Stefanos, Nicolas Jarry, Double H, and Thomas Paul, all friend of the show. In the year of our Lord 2024, how is this
The future is now, man. Good God. First, I want to say Alejandro Tapio had an incredible week. And I mean, there's a lot of things out of his control, like regarding like stuff happening that obviously he was not causing. And I think that's always tough. Like, you're not the main character in some of these incidents, including against Djokovic. But holy hell, what a week for him. It's unfortunate he couldn't get by Zverev in the semifinal. But I think Novak and the water bottle are probably like the takeaway here. Like, I know people were making fun of him when it happened, and there was all this kind of tennis Twitter drama of Novak fans and non-Novak fans going to war over the severity. But remove yourself from that situation and just observe the video. That looked like it hurt, and it looked like it also could cause people problems in different ways because we're not all the same. So I don't know how much he was truly feeling it against Tabio, but I also don't think, like, I'm not thinking this is any sort of pasta routine. I think we're firmly like favoriteless heading into RG, and this week has confirmed it.
So what do you think is the part that people believe that he is embellishing, or
I think it's the what he said after the loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's like him getting waxed like that doesn't look normal. That being said, kind of been normaler than it has been ever before. You know?
That's true. Yeah. And what did I say at the start of the season about we're in the phoning it in territory where he's only going to get up for big matches, and Rome doesn't seem like such a big deal.
Yeah.
I think I'm joking, of course, but I think some part of that is probably there's an element of truth in it. Being smacked on the head with a water bottle, especially a metal water bottle, doesn't look particularly pleasant, does it? It didn't look like it was something that you would enjoy happening to you. I did enjoy reading about some of the hive coming for the person wanting to be arrested, I think I saw, being investigated, being banned from the ground ever again. Like, talk about this. I mean, it obviously sucks. It sucks for the person. It's an accident. It happens. But yeah, it looked bloody painful, Dev. Did not look nice.
Didn't look good. I mentioned no favorite. So Nadal watch continues on. It's getting very Federer. It's getting extremely Federer-esque. And I hate to keep saying that because I know the Rafa fans maybe don't love the constant comps, but he be her catch, man. He's the guy who ended Fed at Wimbledon, and he did similar things here. Obviously not a major, but there's really no expectations left, I think, for Rafa, which is fine. Again, it's fine. And the send-off he got by the crowd in Rome was awesome. Bigger than the Pope. RG is going to be insane. But if he survives the early rounds, I'll be surprised. I'm ready to say it. It's not him. It's not going to be him. No magic last ride. Djokovic, you never know, but I don't think so. I really don't. So we're left with a pretty wild crew push, and the guy who won here is in it, unfortunately. He served really well. Jarry could not get anything on Zverev's first serve. I think it was like 95% first serve points won, which is insane. Like, the scoreline was close, but it did not feel close. Who can stop him at the French Open? Because it's a very short list, man, I think.
We're in the territory now, aren't we, of just hoping that he doesn't get across the line at a major. He's got a really good chance at winning Roland Garros.
I think so.
Yeah. He's in a small group of players. I mean, he's definitely not the favorite in any capacity, just given, I think there's a very wide open field. It's definitely the most wide open. It is the most wide open major in 20 years. I think that's fair. It's probably getting on for that way, isn't it? You think of a more wide open major than this?
It's the most wide open French Open since Rafa Nadal has been on the scene, is, I think, the argument, right?
So we're saying it's the most wide open French Open since 2003. Even then, that wasn't that wide open because everyone thought Ferrero was going to win it. Since 2002, Thiem Okoria, 2001.
Gaston Gaudio. See, like, this is and it makes a lot of sense, though, because wouldn't a final like that really signal in the between eras kind of vibe we're in?
If Sinner doesn't play, which we don't think he will, if Alcaraz doesn't play,
I don't know. Like here's the thing. I was talking to my sister about this yesterday, and she gave an impassioned Stefanos Tsitsipas defense that I think I took to heart, because as formerly being on the train, I've now been kind of angry at the lack of top flight success. But looking at the rest of these people, Steph is one of the people we need, man. He's one of the people we have to rally around. Clayler Fritz, another person that we have to hope somehow puts it together. Thomas Paul, maybe? Is he challengers coded enough to win and get a movie deal? It's possible. Like, this is it.
I think, unfortunately, Dev, I can tell you one name that is the favorite for the French Open that friends of the show will find very funny. Surely it is Casper Ruud.
It's Casper Ruud. You know what? And again, you go from villain to hero so quickly in today's world. Wouldn't it be fitting? But yeah, honestly, it's open casting. We're looking for a hero. It could be you. It could be you, Jannik Hantfin. It could be you.
It could be. Seeing as Double H, Hubie Hurkacz, is on the verge of ending another career here, is he earning the title of Legend Killer in the Randy Orton territory? Ended the Federer one.
Yeah. I do think if he was last tiebreak coded, he would be a top 4 player in the world. Is it the return? Is the return just useless? Is that what we can surmise here?
It's certainly the weakest part of his game by a considerable margin. He's a nice guy. Let's try and push him to the top of the game. It'd be nice to have him.
He's literally got everything else. Like he's got it. Gosh, okay, yeah. Zverev, champion in Rome. Excellent week for Nicholas Jarry as well. The only true Jarry Seinfeld remaining. Great week for Jarry. Great week for Chilean tennis. That was cool. That was cool to see them have their time in the sun. I think it's been a while. Also a topic of discussion in the Discord, but Marcelo Rios' exploits were a long time ago, and I know Jarry's been around for a while, but both players, Tabio and Jarry, making deep runs in Rome, bringing a slight smile to our face. But yeah, Zverev, champion. Anything else to add there on the ATP side, Bush?
What a weird week.
Too long. These things are too long, really. Like I really cannot. It's just so much harder to get into and keep track of things. And obviously, I think we're not the target market. So I don't understand how it's better, but perhaps we got to get a marketing guy.
Two people who worked extensively in marketing for a decade can't tell you how this is supposed to work. I feel like we do come on this show every single week and say that we're not the target audience for it and it's too long and all this sort of stuff. And eventually we kind of have to take our own medicine on this one. But it has to be said, this 10-day experiment isn't really working for me. I don't really enjoy this. It is very confusing, and it seems better to just commit to 2 weeks. If you're going to go for 10 days, go to 2 weeks. Like, fully commit to it and have similar formats to the Grand Slams.
I mean, rip the Band-Aid off. If you really want to crush these smaller tournaments, stop tiptoeing around it. Just do it. And I don't earnestly mean that, but I mean, it seems like it's coming. My last note is Novak is going to play in Geneva, which kind of goes maybe against like the severe concussion angle, but it does back my he doesn't feel totally good about things theory. So, yeah. When we come back after the break, parting shots, Dominic Thiem says goodbye, climate protesters in Rome, and the strange saga of Camilla Giorgi. Coming up next after the break.
Welcome back to the Open Era podcast. It is time for parting shots. Devang, Dominic Thiem is retiring at the end of the season. This is really sad news, not surprising news. I think anyone who's followed the trajectory and the career of the Austrian since trying to come back from really a devastating wrist injury. Where do you even start to unpack this sort of thing? He was, I think, for my money, the best player in the world for about 6 months when he finally reached the summit. He never got to world number one, but he did win a Grand Slam. He was winning tournaments on hard courts. He was beating pretty much everyone in the world. He had great records against everyone for about a year period, 8 months to a year. He is the victim, I think, of trying to push his body to the absolute limits, body and mind, to achieve the ultimate goal in tennis, which was to slay the three greatest players of all time, and also to win a Grand Slam in an era when it was very, very difficult to. I feel like my own personal reflections on this are that he needs to be applauded for the amount of effort that it took to get that single Grand Slam and to have the sort of 2-year period that he ascended really to the very top of the mountain. At the same time, it seems to have cost him the back half of his career, which is kind of sad to see.
No, it's really well said. I think about that 2020 Aussie Open final a lot when I think about Dominic Thiem against Novak, and it really did look like he had it. He had that extra something that you needed against these guys in the biggest moments. Took the third set. He had an opening in the fourth set. He's playing outrageous tennis, and he couldn't close it. He couldn't cross the line. And I think that's why, even in the circumstances that they were in, which were super weird and not normal, that U.S. Open, and we will look back at how much we owe him for a few things. I mean, preventing Serve from winning that, namely the big thing. But even of how janky that final was, God, was he deserving to win that based on the full body of work he contributed as a tennis player. I mean, even that progression at the French Open from 16, 17, 18, 19, taking a set off Nadal in the final in 2019. Looking back, a huge deal. And I think it's an absolute shameful catastrophe that he didn't get a wild card for the French Open. It's a joke, frankly. It kind of underlines how stupid the wild card system is and how the slams are just working together to help their own people rather than rewarding people on merit. What a farce that he has to go through qualifiers. But God, the people are going to be loud as hell cheering for him, and that'll be cool at least.
Assuming that he gets the main draw, of course. Let's put this in. It's also a good time to revisit my patented idea of giving wildcards to anyone in the top 1,000, just at random. It's a full lottery system. I think it would be hilarious to see what happens. You get the world number 1,000 playing the world number 1 in the first round. I think it would be really funny to see. Talk about rags to riches. We need more challenges-esque stories in this, so let's go with that. Just on Thiem briefly, wrists are a problem, aren't they, in tennis? It's one of those things you really can't play the sport without it, and it really sucks that that's another player that's been struck down by such a important part of the body failing them. Overall, Dev, I think it's just really sad because I really enjoyed watching him play. I think out of all of the players that have come along since the big three, he's definitely the most aesthetically pleasing player to watch, not just because of the single-handed, but just his sheer power on both forehand and backhand. Ability to turn defense into attack is incredible to watch on a tennis court. And it's honestly one of those that I think we're far enough removed from him winning a Grand Slam and him being in peak form that a lot of people haven't really got to experience him. It's been a while. It's been, 4 years since he has been that player. So anyone who's new to the tour will have missed him being the force that he was and just this kind of also ran in tournaments. So if you've never seen him play, I really, really encourage you to go and watch him because he's incredible at full flight.
Man, against Novak, some of the forehands he was hitting as well. It's a religious experience. It was awesome. Shouts to Dominic Thiem. All right, Bush, climate protesters in Rome.
Okay, so during the match between Madison Keys and Sorana Cristea, we have climate protesters who glued themselves to the court wearing the high-vis jackets. So tennis, once again, is being targeted by climate protesters. I think this is a strong move on behalf of the climate movement because tennis is a global sport and has done basically nothing to address its climate footprint. See some of our other episodes for that. Madison Keys was quoted during the course of the week when she was asked about this, sort of saying that it's not ideal. I mean, obviously, I think the thing you kind of have to understand through the player's perspective of your own, some of the stuff that's happened throughout history of tennis, where you have people invading the court or you have randomos coming onto the court in any capacity. Personal safety of the players is of optimal. It's the most important thing. We have not had a good track record of it in the sport. Having said that, tennis is primed for disruption. It really is. And again, I support protest. So I was pleased to see this, as long as it's done in a way that doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld, do commencement, ATP Rome, WTA Rome. Do it. I think do it if you can. I mean, I obviously know people don't agree with us on this, and we've got feedback on that as well, and teach their own. But I think I didn't see anyone harmed in this. I didn't see anyone's safety put in danger. I understand it's a hindrance for the players, but this is the point of raising awareness. And it's interesting, like the quote from Keys where she says, like, we got to figure out how to stop this. You could like stop killing the environment in the world. Like that could be an option. Some implementation of some policies. Like that's a way to stop it as well. So maybe she meant that. That's my non-cynical viewpoint.
We've become so sanitized, haven't we, to protest in the last sort of 10 years or 20 years since all of the stuff that's happened politically around the world, is that you tend to forget that almost anything that we consider to be normality now had to be fought for. There has to be a level of protest which comes about it. I always find these things funny whenever I'm talking to my own family about it, or take people who take issue with like roads being blocked or something, and you turn around and you have to sort of encourage people to say like you wouldn't have a healthcare service, you wouldn't have equal rights, you wouldn't have equal pay, you wouldn't have any of these sort of things without someone standing up and putting their arm and saying no to something. So I think it's always a reminder that those who hold power do not give you things out of the goodness of their heart. You do have to fight for them, and sometimes that means you have to break a few eggs. And in this case, it means just gluing yourself to a tennis court. I don't think that's hurting anyone, honestly.
WTA Queens event in 2025? ?
Okay, so this is going to happen. We talked about it a few months ago that some of the pushback was coming from the ATP side of things, effectively over the quality of the grass and how much the court would hold up having this tournament take place prior to the men getting the ATP playing on it. So it sounds like a lot of those concerns have been alleviated, and it sounds like a lot of work is carried on behind the scenes to make it work. It's interesting, isn't it? Because this will be the first time in 50 years, more than 50 years, actually, a long time, since a women's event took place there. This is good to see overall. It really is good to see. There's a lot of stuff to still figure out here. It's like there's so many issues here. To start with, prize money is not the same. There's questions about equity in terms of who's using the grass, all that kind of stuff to be figured out. But don't let good be the enemy of whatever the hell that saying is. At least this event is happening. But in the long run, ban Queen Club. Ban Queen's Club, Deb. That's my solution there.
Is Surbiton done then? Is that over?
Yeah, Surbiton is over.
If Surbiton is done, then the Queen's Club doesn't exist to me. Because how dare you get rid of Surbiton? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that has to be done to maneuver to get this to happen, just given the condensed schedule. And it's once again a reminder that we always talk about how challenging it is to get the Grand Slams to talk to the ATP, to talk to the WTA, to talk to the IDF. And then you throw in another governing body, which is the LTA in Britain as well. So you have all of these bodies trying to compete with each other to get something through. It's a miracle, actually, that any of these events happen, not least that we're trying to replace another one with a tournament like this. I think objectively, it's probably a good thing that this tournament is happening. I think it's probably a net benefit that for the game in Britain, you have another high-profile and prestigious grass court event taking place, and that women are involved in it.
We've been asking for more grass for a while, and now that we have it, I'm pissed off how it's happening. Tennis, baby. This is okay. We love marketing on Open Era. We got a Nadal Federer marketing bonanza here.
Did you see the Louis Vuitton video, the sort of 10-minute thing of them sitting at the top of the mountain?
I didn't watch all of it, and I don't feel bad about that at all. So that's fine. But I did see bits and pieces, and I laughed at a few of them. I don't know. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I'm proud of myself, but I couldn't do it.
I don't really know what to make out of this, other than, so whatever, the Louis Vuitton angle on this, I don't give a fuck about. luxury fashion or luxury brands in general. They do nothing for me. I do think what is interesting is how close of a friendship and a relationship you have between Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. And obviously we got to see that during the retirement ceremony and everything else in the lead up to it. I think it's been clear for a while now that they've been very good friends, like very close friends. And it sort of made me think of trying to think of other examples of really close rivals that turned into friendships at the top of the top of sport. And the one that really sprung to mind for me was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, how much they despised each other when they were playing and how close friends that they became since they sort of stopped playing basketball. I think that's the closest comparison I can put to this one. But it is remarkable how like that kinship and that friendship has endured and sort of blossomed as they've got older. It's kind of nice to see, I guess, in some ways.
No, it's a really good comp. I think there's like some like older ones. Like I saw people mention like Mickey Mantle and like Roger Maris, which I mean I don't know what the hell they were doing teammate wise, but like Tiger and a couple like Tiger and Rory maybe, I don't know. I think it's very rare. Yeah, it's very rare. And yeah, you see Fed's documentary on his final few days, and that Lever Cup is coming out in June. I don't know if you saw the trailer for that.
I have not seen it yet. I'm excited to watch it, I've got to say, despite it being obviously airbrushed and photoshopped to within an inch of its life. I still am curious to see the behind the scenes of it, because we talked about this during the retirement ceremony, and there is, okay, he's still a billionaire and he's still rich and he's still doing all this stuff. But I still think he is a positive male role model. I think there is enough there from some of the shitty male behavior that we've seen, especially in this sport and wider sport in general, that I think at least his presentation to the outside world is at least a better, is choosing my words carefully here, it is a better characterization of modern masculinity than some of the other shit that we've seen.
No, I think you're right. I think that's fair. I will have a tough time watching this. I think it's coming out around my birthday too, so it's just going to be a cry fest as I get 1 year older and watch my idol cry a lot. So yeah, it should be fun. Jannik Sinner, will he or won't he? I did see him training Bush in Monte Carlo, but it doesn't sound for sure that he'll be playing. It
sounds very touch and go, doesn't it? What do they say in the NBA or the NHL playoffs? Day to day. That's what the phrase is.
Coach's decision, yeah.
Coach's, yeah, exactly, yeah. Sounds like Jannik Sinner is going to be day to day going into the French Open. That being said, if Novak Djokovic does not make the final, then Jannik Sinner will be the new world number one. Is a stat that I thought was very interesting.
I mentioned how the live rankings are bullshit and don't mean anything, but come on, tennis. All right, I got one. You got anything else? I got one.
Go for it.
Camila Giorgi. You know, I think the best way that she was described on tour was as an enigma. Like on one day, she could be the best player in the world. On the next day, she could be at the level of someone outside the top 1,000. She did things her own way. I remember her dad vaping in the crowd a few times. That was cool. But she's making news because of her abrupt retirement at the start of May, which I think it was noticed because of like a formality on a website. She was included on the retired players list. But I don't know if you've been following the drama since this happened, Bush, but it's quite made for TV movie-esque.
Please fill me in. I'm excited to learn more about this.
So apparently the reason she retired was due to some financial things. There's authorities looking into her not paying a tax bill of over $400,000, some accusations of furniture theft from the place that she was staying. For her own part, she came out and said, there will be many falsehoods about me, but I confirm it, I'm retiring. It's so Camila Giorgi, and it's so definitely going to be made into a movie. I've never been more sure of something in my life. If you can bet on this, which I don't think you can, and you shouldn't be able to, this will happen.
does not sound like the happiest of upbringing or camps that she came from, it has to be said. So perhaps it's not entirely surprising that the end of this is she's not retiring in the most prestigious way, perhaps, the most happy way. So
yeah,
all that is to say, it still sounds like a very sad story to me.
and I mentioned her dad like joking on me, but like, yeah, it didn't seem super great, and we're making light, but yeah, strange, really strange stuff. Seems like she's okay safety wise though, but yeah, some weird stuff going on. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if she did turn up again at a tournament, but who knows? Watch your nearest movie theater for the cinematic version of this. Okay. Anything else, sir, or should we do 2 challenges remaining?
Let's do it. I see yours in the notes, and I'm curious to hear of your review.
Yeah, so we saw Challengers 2 weeks ago. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed also talking about it on the Discord and seeing what parts people liked or what parts people didn't get. Like, I think I was like not super in love with the moments in which the soundtrack was utilized, but I think it made sense in the wider scheme of things. I thought the tennis playing in the movie was good, like better than some other stuff I saw. And I think overall, like, it was just a really good movie. Like, I think it was really well done. And we joke all the time about tennis lending itself to drama, but like, yeah, it does. And I think everyone in the sense of the 3 main actors did a good job.
It was on my list to watch up here in Whistler. I wanted to come and watch it because I remember that there was a cinema in the middle of Whistler Village that I could walk to and go and watch it on one of these days that I was up here. But the cinema has closed since COVID. So my plan got completely screwed and I have no way of getting to the nearest cinema. So I'll have to watch it when I get back to Vancouver.
Like, it never reopened?
Yeah, it never reopened.
Oh, yeah. Damn. Well, yeah, I highly recommend it. And yeah, I can't get David Goffin being a heartthrob out of my head after this either. But yeah, there's some hilarious stuff in there, man. There's some good stuff. There's also I think they nailed in real world stuff. Like this supposedly takes place in the 2010s. So like they involve people who are in tennis in a way that's like not bad, which I think was something else I was a bit worried about. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think you will too, Bush.
I had 2 colleagues of mine come up to me as they are aware that I host a tennis podcast, and both mentioned they watched Challengers and really liked it and had never watched the sport before. So it is having some level of cut through in some capacity.
Awesome. What do you got?
I was thinking about mine. I was going to talk about Whistler, and then I was like, well, it's Whistler. I should mention, just for our global listeners here, and I'll ask you a question, Dev. A 1-day skiing pass and, let's say, ski hires in Whistler, how much do you think it is for 1 day?
$200 Canadian.
350.
Oh my God. So that's just a lift pass.
No, a lift pass is like 230, and then if you're hiring skis and a helmet and everything, it takes you about 350 for the day with that.
Wow. And that's I do remember when I was in Whistler, I think I was there for work. Didn't feel real in some ways. Like, it felt a bit like a fantasy land, like a bit of a Disney World-esque kind of vibe.
It makes me, I've never been to Disneyland, but it always, whenever I come up here, I always think this is probably what Disneyland is like,
Yeah.
where it feels incredibly fake and it's primarily designed for tourists. That being said, it's quite nice. Like, it's a nice place to walk around. It's got better urban planning, I think, anywhere else in Canada. Like, its central location is nice to walk around. It's got lots of bars and seating and all that kind of stuff, and its air quality is really nice, and lots of cycling, all that kind of stuff. So it's a nice place to come and visit. But yeah, it does feel a bit fake sometimes. I don't know. I will not leave that as my 2 challenge remaining. Board games, that's one. I played a lot of board games over the last week. Played Spirit Island, played Stardew Valley. So yeah, and at some point I will have to make the open air a board game. I'll have to design it, use my actual my career, my profession for some use. I'll have to do that.
We're also waiting on the open air commencement speech. We'll also deliver. All right, Let's leave it there. I gotta go cry because of the Premier League. And Push has to go ski for thousands of dollars. As always, you can find us on patreon.com/openera. Find us there, join us, get the show ad-free, get it early on Sundays. Plus, join the Discord where we're chatting challengers all the time. Plus, yeah, some tennis as well. We're also on Twitter still, @OpenEraPod. For producer Greg on the ones and twos, and for Simon, thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.